Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football, here with our 2020 ACC College Football Recap. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos, as well as check out everything down in the description below, where you can get exclusive content on our website, thegridironexpert.com, as well as follow us on all of our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So here we are breaking down the ACC Conference. We have completed our game-by-game predictions for all 14 teams. So if you want some more analysis on game-by-game predictions for your favorite team or any of these ACC teams, go check out those videos. Of course, we're not going to break down how we predicted them in this video. We're just recapping how we view the conference standings to shape out at the end of the 2020 season. And you know, the ACC has kind of become the laughingstock of the Power 5 conferences. It's been criticized so much because of how weak it is, how uncompetitive it is. And you might start to see some of that change in 2020. Maybe not enough to fully challenge Clemson, but enough that in a few years they might have someone that could give them a run for their money. So we'll begin our recap over in the Atlantic Division with the Clemson Tigers, where it's no surprise that we have them going 12-0, 8-0 in conference play. Look, Clemson's schedule, guys, with the exception of that road game at Notre Dame, which is not a conference game, is pretty dang easy. The Tigers, with the best quarterback in college football in Trevor Lawrence, you've got Travis Etienne. Yes, they lost Justin Ross, but bring back Amari Rodgers at wide receiver, and then Brent Venables leading another great defense. Clemson should be on their way to yet another ACC Championship appearance. There's no surprise that they will more than likely win the Atlantic, but they have a little bit of competition behind them in Louisville. They meet in week 2, and as we mentioned, if the Tigers somehow fell in Death Valley to Scott Satterfield's Cardinals, then Louisville would be in the driver's seat of the Atlantic. Then who knows what could happen after that. We don't see that happening, but they are arguably the toughest test for Clemson within the Atlantic Division. We have Satterfield's Cardinals going 8-4, 5-3 in conference play. That would be a one-game improvement from 2019. Let me tell you, that offense is going to be tough to stop. The defense is the only thing that needs work. They improve that just a little bit, they're going to be pretty dang tough. I would not want to see Louisville on my schedule in 2020. I can tell you that. Behind them, we have Florida State coming in at 7-5, also 5-3 in conference. You know, you look at Florida State this year, Mike Norvell comes in, so it's a brand new era for Seminoles football. But I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. Yeah, 7-5 maybe isn't a whole lot to get excited about, but it's way better than anything Willie Taggart ever did in his really 1.5 years down in Tallahassee. 7-5 with a chance at 8 wins if they win their bowl game would be fantastic for Mike Norvell. He has 10 returning starters on defense, including Hamza Nasruddin, So he should take a step forward. This defense should take a step forward. And Norvell is an offensive mind, and I think he's finally going to get some great quarterback play out of James Blackman or Chubba Purdy, depending on who he chooses. Florida State, certainly a team that's certainly on the rise. Never really thought you'd say that from such a great program. But 7-5, 5-3 for the Seminoles, followed behind with Wake Forest, also coming in at 7-5, but 4-4 in conference play. Sure, they lose Jamie Newman, a lot of people offensively. I'm not too worried about it. Their defensive line's very stout. They return 9 starters on that side of the ball, and I have a lot more faith in Sam Hartman than I think a lot of people do. When you lose a star quarterback like Jamie Newman, a lot of people think you're going to take a step back. Hartman knows the system. He was the starter back in 2018. He's going to fit in just fine with Dave Clawson and the Demon Deacons, and he's got one of the best receivers in the conference in Sage Surratt to do it. Syracuse, we have returning to the postseason after missing out last year with a 5-7 record. We have Dino Babers in the orange going 6-6, 2-6 within the conference. Biggest thing for Syracuse is improving their offensive line play, guys. They have to step up offensively. Tommy DeVito was the most sacked quarterback in the country last year. He was sacked 50 times last year. So he has certainly got to get a little bit more protection. They had a couple games where if they had won them, they would have slipped into bowl contention last year. They were 5-7 following that 10-3 season in 2018. I think Dino Babers gets them back on track and shows that 2018 really was not a fluke. Sure, they're not going to win 10 games, but he might get them back to perennial bowl contention. Then we've got NC State and Boston College rounding out the Atlantic Division, both missing out on the postseason. We think North Carolina State takes a step forward offensively. They weren't very good on that side of the ball last year. They've got a great running back duo in Bam Knight and Jordan Houston, so I think that's going to be what defenses have to focus on when you're facing off against the Wolfpack. And that's also going to be key for Devin Leary. He's got some help at the run game. Will that be enough to help him maybe setting up some great play action passes? So NC State takes a step forward offensively. The defense is my only concern right now with 4 starters back. Schedule's not too favorable for them. But again, they're just one win away from getting back to the postseason after going 4-8 in 2019. Same for Boston College here, 4-8 in 2020 according to us. 1-7 in conference. They've got a lot of work cut out for them. Jeff Hafley, brand new head coach coming in as the former co-defensive coordinator at Ohio State, has 7 returning starters defensively, but who's going to be his quarterback? Dennis Grosel. Is it going to be Phil Jerkovec if he gets eligibility? The transfer from Notre Dame. A.J. Dillon is gone. And as we all know, Boston College under Steve Addazio is never known to be very flashy offensively. So I think with the pandemic happening and taking away spring practices, in the midst of changing schemes, in the midst of not finding an identity offensively, I think the Eagles are in for a relatively rough season in 2020. We head over to the Coastal. And man, this is going to be the fun side of the ACC. We know more than likely Clemson's going to win the Atlantic. But man, the Coastal, like last year, up for grabs. Who wants it? Who wants the Coastal? Who wants the honor of playing Clemson in the ACC title game? And right now we've got North Carolina being that team. We've got the Tar Heels finishing 9-3. They're up there as a tie, actually, with Virginia Tech. But we have North Carolina defeating the Hokies in the regular season, breaking that tiebreaker. And look at Miami here, 9-3 as well, but 5-3 in conference play, so kind of outside of those two. But we mentioned over and over in our prediction videos, there were the 3 main dogs. You got North Carolina, Virginia Tech, and Miami that would contend for the top spot in the Coastal. But don't sleep on Pittsburgh. There's one game separating Pittsburgh to North Carolina. One game separating Pittsburgh to North Carolina. 6-2 to 5-3. So do not sleep on the Panthers. But right now we have UNC winning the division. Guys, they've got 10 returning starters on offense. Sam Howell's leading the charge. Was one of the best freshman quarterbacks in the country last year. He'll be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, period, this year. Daz Newsome returning as his leading wide receiver. Mac Brown continuing to lead the charge. Their defense returned 7. Only gave up less than 24 points per game last year. Schedule lines up very favorably for them. If they can get past that kind of tough stretch at the beginning with a road game at UCF, the neutral site game against Auburn, and then a maybe trap game against James Madison at home, which would be their first home game, North Carolina has a very good chance of winning this Coastal Division. Virginia Tech follows them, as we mentioned, with 19 returning starters this year. 19 returning starters, very stout defense that will now be led by Justin Hamilton and not Bud Foster, which kind of be getting used to saying will be very different on the sidelines. They do have a very, very good offense with Hendon Hooker at quarterback and a couple big transfers as well to help with their running game. So watch out for the Hokies. They defeat North Carolina. It could be them that wins the Coastal and plays Clemson. And then the same can be said for Miami, sitting at 9-3. Everybody's going to say Miami's overrated. They've been irrelevant for years. How can you have them going 9-3? We've heard all that before. All right, we get it. We get it. And there's, sometimes hard to find that fine mix between realists and people that are just too much of a homer. You got to find your right mix of Miami fans here. Guys, look, you're not going undefeated. Miami's not going undefeated. They're not going 11-1. You went 6-7 last year, closing the season with losses to Florida International, Duke, and Louisiana Tech. All right? 9-3 is a one heck of an improvement, one heck of a step forward. And I genuinely think Manny Diaz can get them there. Because they bring in De'Aaron King in at quarterback, the transfer from Houston. Like we mentioned kind of with Florida State, like we kind of mentioned with Syracuse, if they can improve their offensive line play, we know Miami's defense is going to be one of the best in the country, especially up front along that defensive line. I think De'Aaron King and the offensive line is the difference in maybe 2 or 3 games, which is what you're going to see in the increased win column since the Hurricanes went 6-7 last year. So 3 straight 9-3 teams here within the Coastal Division, followed by Pittsburgh coming in at 4th. We have them going 8-4, 5-3, and like Miami, they're going to have a very stout defense. One of the best in the ACC, guys. Pittsburgh was 1st nationally in sacks per game last year. They were 9th nationally in tackles for loss per game last year. They were, I believe, 15th in the country in total defense and 12th in the country in rushing defense. So the defense is no problem for Pat Narduzzi and the Panthers. It's if they can get more consistent quarterback play out of Kenny Pickett. You saw him have some ups and downs last year. One of his greatest performances was in the bowl game against Eastern Michigan. So if he carries that momentum into 2020, Pittsburgh's going to be looking pretty dang good. And they have a chance, if they finish 8-4 like we predict, to win their bowl game and clinch 9 wins for the first time since 2009. So many think Pittsburgh could win 10 games. I'm not going that far, but I think 8-4 is a fantastic year for the Panthers. You got Virginia coming in at 5th, 3-5. So you kind of draw a line here after Pittsburgh. That's where you kind of separate the contenders in the Coastal. And that's crazy to say considering Virginia did win the Coastal last year. They were the Coastal champions. Made the ACC title game, made the Orange Bowl. But I look at Virginia this year, Bryce Perkins was such a big part of what they did in 2019. Was such a major reason for their 9-5 record that they had last year. And Perkins is gone. So it's like we mentioned, there are a couple keys for certain teams here, and for Virginia, their key is quarterback. Who starts? Brennan Armstrong, Keaton Thompson, and whoever it is, how well do they play, and how well do they gel with some wide receivers, because they lose 2 of their top 3 receivers from last season. So I think you take a little bit of a step back if you're Virginia, but they have enough talent to once again make their 4th straight bowl game, something they have not done since the 2002 to 2005 seasons. So Bronco Mendenhall continuing to do a great job there. The defense is going to be great once again, but Virginia does take a step back. And you've got Duke and Georgia Tech rounding out the Coastal, rounding out the ACC here. We've got David Cutcliffe and Chase Bryce, the transfer QB from Clemson, going 5-7 for the 2nd straight year. For the 2nd straight year for the Blue Devils, we have them just missing out on the postseason. There are a couple games in our prediction video for Duke that we mentioned could be wins. They were kind of toss-up games. They're both road games. So if they were to win one of those, 6-6, 3-5, they're going bowling. But I just don't know if Chase Bryce and them are ready enough for that this year. Maybe next year when he's a senior and he's got a year with Cutcliffe under his belt. But I think Duke falls just short yet again. Same for Georgia Tech, who's in year 2 under Jeff Collins, still adapting to that new offensive system. They have 10 returning starters offensively, 7 returning starters defensively. Most people would freak out over that, would be thrilled to have that. And I know Jeff Collins is thrilled, but most of the time that results in a big season. It's just not going to be the case down in Atlanta. Georgia Tech, we have going 3-9, but winning 2 conference games. So over 66% of their wins will come in ACC conference play, which is exactly what happened to them last year when they also went 3-9 and 2-6 in conference. So that wraps up our standings for the Atlantic and the Coastal, which means that we've got Clemson taking on North Carolina in the ACC Championship game. And I think this is the game that everybody wants to see. Because if you remember last year, Clemson almost lost to the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill. They survived that game 21-20. North Carolina shut down Clemson's offense, held them to 21 points. And when they scored the potential game-tying touchdown late in the game, Matt Brown chose to go for 2, and Clemson stuffed it, preventing the Tar Heels from pulling off the massive upset. So everybody wants to see it again with what should be a better North Carolina team than we saw last year. Keep in mind, UNC had 6 losses, all by 1 possession. Could they give Clemson a fight? And if they win this ACC Championship game, could they knock Clemson out of the college football playoff if, in fact, they are undefeated? It's going to be a fantastic game. 2 great quarterbacks going at it. 2 very solid defenses going at it. Do not sleep on the Tar Heels defense. But until proven otherwise, we're going with the Tigers to win the ACC. We've got Clemson winning the ACC Championship yet again. Won it last year, won it the year before, won it the year before. They're going to win it again this year in 2020 in what should be a very close and thrilling game against Matt Brown's Tar Heels. But for now, it's Clemson's world in the ACC, and we're all just living in it. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. We've got our ACC conference recap, guys. Every ACC team has been predicted. So go check out all of our prediction videos for these 14 teams. We're moving on to our next conference next, so do not miss out on it. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. We've got so many more prediction videos coming your way. I can promise you do not want to miss it. Check out everything down in the description below for some more exclusive college football content. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.